yesterday, the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, sparked a massive debate in India by backing gender fluidity while hearing this case yesterday. While the Solicitor General of India was arguing that relationships within Indian laws are sanctified between a biological man and a biological woman, even in the Special Marriage Act, the CJI countered him, saying that he may be making a big value judgment by saying so. Making oral remarks, the CJI said, there is no absolute concept of a man or a woman at all. Biological man is not a definition of your genitals. It is far more complex. He added, notion of man or woman is not absolute based on the genitals that you have. Now, challenging the biological notion of gender and sex may be relatively new for India, but gender fluidity as a concept is not entirely new, certainly not amongst the urban educated elite. What is this theory? Now, gender fluidity refers to a gender identity that is not fixed or static, but instead can vary and change over time. Individuals who identify as gender fluid may feel that their gender identity does not fit within the traditional binary categories of male or female, or that it shifts between these categories or even beyond them. This is why among such individuals today there is an insistence to use their preferred pronouns like they, them and other such. Such individuals can be binary, gender queer, gender fluid or agender. Gender queer, for example, are individuals that feel that their identity is fluid, ever-changing mix of masculine and feminine traits. Gender fluid are those who may feel that their gender identity shifts and changes over time. Now, that people can identify as mixed or non-binary genders is one thing. It's quite another to suggest that because they feel a certain way, biological sex doesn't exist or can be brushed aside. On top of that, trans movements have moved beyond accepting gender identity to enforcing sex change therapies and mixed use of female-only spaces that have created a whole new set of problems. Some of the most staunch gender fluid movements today can be witnessed in countries like Canada, USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand. In these countries, there are massive women movements now objecting to trans men, men who identify as women, taking over gender-safe spaces. Many such activists, as I'm showing on the screen, are being attacked today, physically attacked, because they insist that men cannot be allowed to just self-identify as women and take over their spaces. Many of them are also fighting to keep women's sports separated from trans men or male to female transgenders. Now, here is what opponents of gender fluidity say, and these include medical professionals. Gender theory disregards basic biology and male-female differences. It establishes minute biological deviations as norms instead of recognizing basic human physiology. In other words, there may be individuals who may be born with some biological anomalies or who may feel differently, but that cannot be used to suggest that gender doesn't exist at all. Dangerously, this theory today actively pushes children into sex change or puberty blocking, like it is happening in America, despite suggesting that gender is not based on biology. Finally, there is a massive danger emerging to women's safe spaces, with self-identity overruling biological sex and men self-identifying as women and being allowed to intrude into these spaces. So the big debate that's coming up, even as the CJI backs gender fluidity, can we truly brush aside biology? Listen into the exact discourse in court when this came up.
A relationship between a biological male and a biological female, including Special Marriage Act.
But Mr. Solicitor,
Number one.
There's a very important value judgment which you are making, that the very notion of a biological man is absolute, or that a notion of a biological woman is also an absolute notion.
Never change.
Which is incorrect.
Biological man means biological man. It's not a question of notion.
Positives of right.
Yes, of course it is.
None of us.
There is no absolute concept of a man or an absolute concept of a woman at all. That's the whole argument in a broader context.
Biological man, my lord, means man only. It means, my lord, biological man.
Biological man is not a definition of what your genitals are. It's far more complex. That's the point.
We stop having rights if we are not a biologist.
So even when the Special Marriage Act says man and woman, the very notion of a man and a notion of a woman is not an absolute. Based on what genitals you have.
Lord, biological man means genitals you have. Lord, I didn't want to use that expression. Look, there are several acts. If the notion is treated to be a guiding factor to decide man or a woman, then I will show several acts which your lordships would unintentionally make non-workable. I may have, my lord, genital of a man, but if I am otherwise a female, my lord, as my lord possibly trying to be suggested, then, my lord, how would I be treated under the criminal procedure code? As a woman, my lord, can I be called? For 160 statement after a particular hour, I may say that this is only a notion. I may have a biological genitals of a man, but now I am a woman. My lord, there are several issues, my lord, which have to be gone into. Better they go into be gone into by the parliament. And your lordships, my lord, kindly appreciate.
Abhijit Mitra, Shashank Shekhar, Nikhil Mehra continue with me. Amitabh Sinha, senior lawyer, is also joining us. Dr. Nitya Koratagire, co-founder and CSO, Care on Call, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, is also joining us. But before I go across to the doctor on the panel, Abhijit, you're one of the petitioners and you've already been on record online to suggest that you're not very happy with the CGI coming in with this gender fluidity remark. Why is that? Can you explain your position?
Because this wasn't about gender, Shivani. That was the whole point of our petition, right? That it needs to be gender neutral. Now he's gone and gotten into a debate that simply does not apply to India as it stands today. It's a very dangerous debate. It is not gender science. Remember what he's talking about. He's parroting extremely dangerous leftist socialist gender ideology, which has been concocted out of thin air in the West to create new minority victim groups to exploit politically. Okay, till about 10-15 years back, you could do whatever you wanted in your private life as long as you kept it out of work.
Yeah.
Today, there is the mainstreaming of all this nonsense at work. And this is the segue used to terrorize doctors and force them to go in for child genital mutilation. Let's not call it gender reaffirming surgery. Let's call it what it is, child genital mutilation. Puberty blockers, which is basically chemical castration of the child, etc., and extremely dangerous things like this. A circus, a dystopian circus of crazies, nut jobs, and psychologically deranged happening in the West, which we absolutely do not want here. Okay. This is exactly the kind of nonsense we did not want here, and he's basically opened the door for the loonies to come in by the truckload.
Do you fear that this case could get overshadowed by this, or was this just an off-the-cuff remark that happened? Maybe he got carried away, I don't know, but this would have no bearing on this same-sex marriage case per se, or is that your fear?
I'm hoping it will not have. I'm hoping it was an off-the-cuff remark. Unfortunately, given the traction that particular statement got yesterday, it's already overshadowed everything else. All right, he's already opened a door, which is a very unfortunate door, which should have never been opened here. Okay, it took it off on a completely irrelevant parallel. And if any damage is done, the CGI is single-handedly responsible for it.
Nikhil, the fundamental question that also comes to mind is it right for the CGI to be dishing out these opinions, which are highly contested scientific issues, and, almost stated as a fact, and then to do it in a case where this has no relevance, as Abhijit is saying? It's almost, completely taken over the subject that we were supposed to be discussing.
Yeah, I think the first part of your question hits the nail on the head. You see, there is a concept under the Indian Evidence Act where under Section 114, courts can assume certain facts to be true even without requiring the proof of those. So those are very basic fundamental things. For example, till now, biological sex used to be one of those things.
Right.
So the way in which he has said it, the certainty with which he has said it, that I found objectionable. I have no problem if somebody wants to contest these facts politically, scientifically, even within the law, but you cannot, from a judicial standpoint, immediately say, I assume this to be a fact and truth. Because it is impossible today to say that there is scientific consensus on this point.
Yeah.
Right? So the certainty with which he has stated his proposition, that I found to be quite odd.
Okay. Shashank, this was, of course, an exchange happening with SG Tushar Mehta. What is your sense of, what really transpired here? Do you believe this is just an ordinary back and forth discussion that shouldn't really be taken more seriously than that, even if the CGI may have let his mind known on a subject which is very controversial and also very tightly contested on the basis of science itself, or is it more than that? Are we to take it as more than that?
Shivani, I was before Supreme Court
Yes.
itself yesterday when this statement was said by the CGI.
We can see
now,
you in the video.
With due respect to the Honorable CGI.
Yeah, we can see you in the
So with
video,
due
and I
respect to the
also,
Honorable
can I
CGI,
just, sorry to interrupt you, can I just also say that, you know, I heard this video again and again, and the way the SG is reiterating biological man is biological man. It was also quite humorous to see this exchange, and thank God we have video now of these exchanges, because it's good to have this on record. But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, transparency is the must, and thank God that we are having transparent video conference in this case. Now, to Shivani ji, to this point, with due respect to Honorable CGI, I believe that Solicitor General representing Government of India was specifically talking about Special Marriage Act and the notion of men and women as said by the Special Marriage Act and other laws in India, which is derived from the norms, societal norms in India. While CGI was representing or talking about some other notions which is already been in a great discussion in Western society. So, since I am not a very much expert of this, though I disagree with the point of CGI, I will just quote two of the social media users, because you have talked about social media. One, Dr. Anand Ranganathan of JNU. He says, to confuse sex with gender is astonishing for a Chief Justice. A biological man is one who possesses XY chromosomes and produces sperm. He can still identify himself as a woman. Now I will quote another fellow from social media, the skin doctor. He says, and I quote, CGI sir, hope you are reading this. You are a learned man. Your area of expertise is law, but perhaps few more fields, but certainly not biology. Please don't use sociology concepts to explain biology. Why not call us science expert under section 45 to 51 of Indian Evidence Act instead? Unquote. So here I say that I subscribe to these 2 points. I am not an expert, and I think CGI is also not an expert. He is an expert of law. So if we say that there is no clear distinction between biological men and women, then there is and being a practicing lawyer, there is no clear distinction between an attorney, a solicitor, an intern, an associate, a senior lawyer, a junior lawyer, an aged lawyer, a fresher lawyer. Then will you say that no, all are different categorizations? No, you will just say that there is one lawyer and one senior designated lawyer. That's it. You do not differentiate between a small paternal changes between all those things. So I guess Supreme Court of India, including Chief Justice of India, with my complete due respect, must understand that these video footages are being seen by 140 crore population of India, among which a huge number of population is is illiterate. A huge population is not come to a solution where they see that India can go through uniform civil code. So I guess at this point of time, I don't think such oral observation should be given, especially with the fact that CGI himself in past has said that an order of a judge should be reflected by a written judgment rather than oral observation. So I guess he must check himself.
Okay,
with due respect.
That was going to be my next question to Amitabh Sinha. We know we live in the social media age. We know that oral remarks carry a certain import, and they certainly carry a lot of weightage when it comes from the sitting CGI. Do you think that all judges, including the CGI, need to be a little bit careful, especially in today's day and age? And also the manner, as Nikhil was saying, the manner in which he has said it is not a question-answer or a poking of a lawyer and extracting an answer or debating an issue. He's almost stated it as a fact.
Shivani, yes, I totally agree with this line of argument. With proper due respect to the Chief Justice of India office, I just want to make it very clear as far as my point of view is concerned that Justice Chandrachud should have restrained from such type of remarks. It was not required at all. Number one, it is not required means he should have kept quiet about this, and he should have kept everything in his mind before the delivery of the judgment. All these things basically attracts a lot of confusion and all the debates which is not actually required in the public domain. See, this is basically an issue which is to be decided by the Parliament of India, because this is the reflection of the society's desire and wish. So everything should not be decided by Supreme Court. That is the first, doctrine which should be very clearly decided. Number two, let us discuss about the observation of Justice Chandrachud.
Yeah.
He is saying that there is no notion as such. Then what should happen about the reservation about the women in elections? See, in elections, the particular seat is reserved for women. Who should apply for that seat, and who should be the candidate for that seat? All these things will create unnecessary confusion. So the person will come and say that no, and a notion, because the man and woman is not demarcated, and Chief Justice of India has observed this. So I will also come forward as a woman. So all these things are not required at all. Why Justice Chandrachud is behaving like an activist? I am sorry. Again, I am telling you, as you know, as a responsible lawyer of the Supreme Court. See, this, and with due respect to the Chief Justice of India office, this should have been and must have been, avoided, because all these observations are not required.
Yeah, not required. It was definitely not part of this case. Unless something happens and it becomes part of this case, I don't know. But Nikhil, while I can say that society should discuss and debate these issues, there's nothing wrong with it. Is it okay for the courts to let their mind known, or in this case, individual judges, that to a CGI to let their mind known? Is that a good phenomenon, you think? In a healthy democracy, we should know which way our judges stand on some pertinent issues, or do you think fundamentally judges should refrain from making their personal mind known?
No. See, he is not making his mind known in some. See, nowadays they give a lot of speeches as well, so a lot of their mind is known through those avenues as well. Look, he has interpreted the. So I want to first be clear. This was an off-the-cuff statement that happened. First up. Secondly, it was in the context of saying this says biological male, biological female is how the SG understands the act, male and female. So therefore, the CGI turns and answers, well, male and female itself may be debatable.
Debatable, yeah.
Had he left that to being debatable, then I think we might have been all right at best. But to have used that platform at that moment in time to assert a sort of scientific certainty, that's where I think the botheration happens. I have no problems with him in that context, letting his mind be known as best he understands the issue, right?
Okay.
But perhaps his understanding of the issue is too certain on a matter which is as so far indeterminate.
Yeah. So let me go across to the doctor on the panel also, Dr. Nitya.
Hi.
I don't think any of us want to discount the fact that gender dysphoria exists. There are individuals who feel they are in the wrong biological body, but even that accepts that biologically there is a sex assigned to them. There is no question that those cases exist, and you may have both feminine, masculine traits, etc. But fundamentally, none of those cases can be used to say that gender doesn't exist at all, that biologically there is no gender. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Shivani, actually, so biologically, if you go back to like a medical definition of what is a male or a female, right? Medically, we define it as a female is someone who produces eggs and has ovaries, and a male is someone who produces sperms and has, the male gonad. But if you go to the other spectrum of gender identity and also gender expression, which is also, it comes under the ambit of gender, right, as a whole, right? The edifice of gender has biological sex, has gender expression, as well as gender identity. So when you look at that, we have seen in the medical profession that people or a person can identify, self-identification of their own gender can happen at an early age, as early as 8 or 9 years of age. A person or a child starts behaving or starts identifying themselves with their gender. And that can be, in certain cases, it can be outside of what is assigned to them at birth.
Okay.
And at birth, we assign, say, a birth certificate, or a doctor looks at it purely medically. And as I already mentioned, that's medical definition. But when the person themselves identify their gender, and then they go forward with those behaviors and they adopt behaviors, it's also not just their psychology, it's also the environment that they are in, right? So they take clues from society, they take clues from the environment, and as a whole, at the end of the day, medicine is a holistic. We look at the holistic well-being of the patient.
So once again, despite my personal views on this, what I am saying is that gender identity and biological sex are two different things. You can have a gender identity that may shift in a spectrum, but biological sex doesn't shift. It's a hard, cold reality at birth. Am I right in saying that at least?
Birth, yes, at birth, biological sex does exist, and unless it's an intersex person, where the gonads are intermixed. There are different gonads, different external genitalia, internal organs are different. So that can happen.
No, so that is why I'm bringing to question the CJI statement, and this is verbatim. There is no absolute concept of a man or woman at all. Biological man is not a definition of what your genitals are. But fundamentally, defining a biological man will be a function of his reproductive organs and genitals, isn't it? Gender identity is separate, but I can only be identified as biological woman or man by looking at my physiology.
So gender identity is separate and biological sex is separate, but it all comes under the ambit of gender.
Okay. All right. Well, we're looking at a time when maybe this gender debate will come to India as well. Has the CGI opened up the floodgates for that? We'll wait and see. Yes, Shashank, I have 30 seconds. Very quickly, please.
I guess we need to understand one thing very importantly in the court. When you are sitting on a higher position, and with due respect to that position, when you are talking about 140 crore population and you are taking something in your hand which is otherwise in the hand of parliament, you need to be that responsible, because you need to understand that every word you say and every word you write will have implication on 140 crore population as well as the civilization called Indian civilization.
Okay,
so
fair enough. We have large questions to deal with as far as these cases are concerned. One, domain of judiciary or parliament, to be fair, and secondly, where will this lead when it comes to Indian society? I do thank all of our guests for this engaging debate. Thanks a lot for joining us. Time for a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you a special report from Afghanistan, where the fate of of women hangs in the balance under the Taliban regime.